Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Dirt and the Divine. I'm Krisha Young, your host and executive growth strategist, author, and advocate for living a fully aligned and unapologetic life. This podcast is built on the philosophy that every beautiful life has its roots in both the messy and the magnificent. Here we share raw and real stories from incredible individuals who faced life's toughest challenges head on, dug deep into their souls, and took radical personal responsibility for their lives. They didn't run and hide from their struggles. They explored their emotional landscapes, owned their experiences, and emerged authentically, living in joy and alignment. Through these conversations, my hope is to inspire you to think, wow, if they went through all of that and found happiness, so can I. This space is about embracing the journey, the dirt, and the divine, because together they shape a life worth living. Please note that this podcast is for general discussion and is not a substitute for therapy, legal, or professional advice. Let's get started. So today I have a good friend, somebody I've known for a while, Hannah Chapman. She brings peace to the confusion and chaos of business and personal finances as a certified financial planner and chartered retirement planning counselor with over 18 years of experience in the financial sector, and as the founder of both X Squared Wealth Planning and Expansive CEO. She empowers visionary entrepreneurs to save wisely, spend joyfully, and support the causes that matter to them generously through bespoke financial planning and investment management. She also uses transformational coaching, human design, gene keys to her work. She brings the intellect on board with transforming your money stories through the logical and practical aspects of wealth building and business finance, and brings the heart and soul on board through spiritual and intuitive aspects of human design, gene keys, inner child healing, and more. I love, love, love this topic. I mean, money and human design and transformation and spirituality, like all of my favorite topics. And so today, our topic is going to be how human design can help with conscious wealth creation. Hannah, hi.
Krisha, hi. It's so good to see you. I'm just so happy to be here and get to talk about all of this amazing stuff with you. Thank you.
I know. Thank you for being here. I'm so happy that you're here. I've been on your podcast and we've been friends for a while. We've never met in person, but we've been
Not
in,
yet.
not yet, but we've been in the same sort of like online communities and things like that. And, I've witnessed your growth, you've witnessed my growth. We've had a lot of really amazing conversations behind the scene. I consider you a friend, and I'm so grateful to know you, and so happy to have you here. Um, why don't you start by telling us how all of this got started for you? So you were working as a financial planner and in corporate, right? And then tell us the story. Tell us what happened.
Yeah. So I really love how you frame even the conversations that we're having here that, we all go through really tough stuff at different points of our lives. And it's when we dig deep and when we allow ourselves to like really experience the full range of what we're living through to come out the other side and be more successful and create the life that we knew was possible. So I have been in the financial sector, like you said, for 18 years at this point, and in financial planning specifically. And I'd been an advisor for several years. I was behind the scenes doing all of the financial plan writing for a long time, and then became a client-facing advisor. So I'd been an advisor for a couple of years and was asked to take over the book of a retiring advisor. So if you think of financial advisor, the first thing that comes to mind for most people is an old white guy. Like, let's just be honest, right? And so that is the norm in the industry by a large percentage. And the person that I was supposed to be taking over from was in his 70s. He was supposed to have retired a few years before, actually, and kept like booting out any successor, basically, that the practice tried to put in front of him. So I represented something much different. I'm very good at what I do. The financial planning aspect was what was really, precious to him. And they wanted someone who could really do a good job with that. for his clients, and that's me. So it started off great. This was back in 2017, 2018. The relationship started off amazingly well, and he was so supportive, so complimentary. Like, she's amazing. She's so smart. She knows exactly what she's doing. She's great talking with clients. Like, yeah, I know. Like, I got this. Until about 6 or maybe a year. I think a year later, um, he wanted me to do something that I thought was not right, and the details aren't important. It wasn't anything like, highly inappropriate, but it was not I didn't feel it was in the best interest of the client. I said no. I told the partners what was happening, and they agreed with me that, "No, you shouldn't do this thing. It's not what's right for the client." But that moment actually caused him, this other advisor, to basically pull his support from me. And, being a type A, highly organized, like, overachiever at, like, all the way through at this point, I was not used to someone telling me that, "No, you're not doing a good job." And I was not used to any of this, like, this feeling of, like, I'm good with people, I'm charismatic, people tend to like me, right? All of the you can hear it now, the perfectionism, the people pleasing, like, all of it just oozing out of me at this point in my career. But it was very, very jarring. It was super jarring for me. And the fact that beyond that, me disagreeing with him and him turning on me for disagreeing was the fact that he then was saying that, no, she can't take over my book of clients. This isn't going to work. And I went into, like, such a spiral at that point, um, and knew that this was, like, uh, not fair, not right, like, the injustice of it was coming up. I was feeling bullied, um, and I knew he was bullying other people in the practice, right? So my sense of, like, standing up for the other people in the practice was, like, all on fire as well. But I was going through this at the same time, this feeling of, like, how is this not working? It's not working. It's like I'm doing it wrong. I'm messing up. And as I got through, this was going on and on for a little bit, I started to have suicidal ideation coming up. This sense of, like, how is this not okay? Right? How is this not working? What would happen, I would drive one particular route to work every day. Because we were all in office back then, right? And I would take a left turn at a pretty big intersection every day. I would take this left turn on the way, and I started having this thought of, like, "Man, I wish a tractor trailer would just hit me in the driver's side door at that left turn. Not hurt anyone else, just me. I'm the only one. My family would be better off. At work, they would be better off. I have life insurance, right? That'll take care of my family for a while," right? Like, these were the thoughts that were coming up, and they were happening more and more regularly until at one point I heard so clearly in my head, like, the thought started, and then my higher self said, "That's not you. That's not you." And when I, like, listened to that, I knew that I had to listen to that voice. That was the truth, right? "This is not you," was the truth. The "they would be better off without me" was not the truth. And so when I heard that and I said, "Okay, that's truth. I know that that's the truth, that this is not me. These thoughts are not me. It's not what's real." I found help. I found, a psychiatrist and a therapist at the same time. Um, Gosh, this was back in 2019. So I started taking antidepressant medication, anti-anxiety medication, literally just to get through my days because I still had to interact with this advisor. There was still like we were still in the process of, like, no, we have to make it work. Hannah's the right person. So I still had to go and be and sit in meetings with this person who was then, like, so happy and cheery during the meeting. And then as soon as it was done, like, the energy would completely shift. And I would have panic attacks having to go into this situation. And so it was okay, I'm going to take my anti-anxiety medication so I can go into this meeting and deal with it and not have a panic attack. I was reading Crucial Conversations at that point, which I actually recommend quite a bit. It's an amazing book. I was like, how do I have these conversations? How do I do this? How do I stay in the conversation without shrinking, without attacking? I wasn't necessarily, I was very, very rarely. I could be pushed to the attacker stage, right? Like verbally attacking. But for the most part, I would be the one that would fold and be quiet and be silent and just take whatever someone was telling me. And I knew that that wasn't right. So I'm bolstering myself with how do I have these conversations, standing up for myself over and over again. Um, but it was definitely that first moment of this is not you, listening to that, listening to my inner voice. You can call it your inner voice, your intuition, your higher self, whatever that connects to for you, and then taking action from that, and then taking the next action, and then believing in myself, and then standing up for myself until I got to the point of probably about eight months later. So this was in 2020. So actually, it was May of 2020. I remember the meeting and everything when I was told by the partners that, it's not going to work out the way we thought it was. So you're going to get, instead of this book that we told you were going to get, that would pay, somewhere between $300 and $350,000 a year, like right off the bat, as soon as I took it over. Like, yeah, I'll move for that. That's awesome. I will do that. Um, Instead, it was going to be, no, you're probably going to be stuck around $70,000 a year, and you can build it on your own. And we're going to hand you these, really low tier clients that we don't want to work with anymore because we think that's the right move. And as soon as that conversation happened, once again, my higher self said, you don't know who I am. You don't know who I am because that's not me. What the picture you just painted of me is not me. I know who I am. I know I am meant to help people in a big way. I know I am meant to experience, this sense of getting to like work with people that I love to work with and to help them actually transform, to make a difference in their lives. Like that is what I'm here to do. And it's not to work with, the people that you are sick of working with, you don't even want to talk to anymore, and to work inside of a practice that is actively trying to get as many people as possible and spend as little time as possible with them. Like, you don't know who I am. And so, right at that moment in May of 2020 was when I decided to start exploring and figuring out what was next because it wasn't there. And as I explored and I applied at a few different independent firms. I was at a big, corporate firm before. As I applied at some of these different independent firms, I had interviews, I met with people. I kept hearing, you just need to do it on your own. Don't go there. You don't want to be a partner in someone else's firm. You don't want to have, be a small voice in a big practice. You don't want to, like, no, you need to do it on your own. And so all the exploring I did, more heartbreak along the way, right? Thinking I was going to get hired at one place and then them saying like, no, you're not the right fit. Um, that felt really crushing when it happened, right? And then that again just bolstered me. Like, nope, that's it. That's what was supposed to happen because I need to do this. I need to create the firm that I envisioned doesn't exist. I have to create it. And so that's what eventually turned into X Squared Wealth Planning. That was in January of 2021. Oh my God, we're recording this on January 28th of 2025. So literally 4 years ago today is when I resigned from my job. And in January 2029, my registration, the way it works in the financial industry, my registration flipped over into the new firm that backed me up to create X Squared. And I was able to start talking to people on January 29th of 2021. So it's been officially 4 years. And the the way that I get to work with clients now and the way that I get to be me and have that be the thing that draws the right people in to work with me is everything. Everything that I imagined, everything that I knew was true. And even more, like if you would have told me 4 years ago when I was like, okay, I gotta go. There was a lot of I have to get away from what's happening energy, right? There was a lot of that was there, like protecting myself, protecting my mental health, protecting my emotional, spiritual health, protecting my relationships, protecting my physical health. So I didn't run my car into a tractor trailer, right? All of those things. Like I was protecting myself at that point and getting away from. And over the next couple of years, especially 21 and 22, especially, I put so much work into healing from running away so that I could be in this energy of running towards and like getting to build from a place of excitement, of opportunity, of joy, of like I am in love with my businesses at this point, right? And you couldn't have told me, you couldn't have described what I'm doing today right now, and I wouldn't have understood. I'm like, how? How did we get there? And yet here we are.
And yet here we are. Thank you for sharing all of that, Hannah. I'm sure there's probably a lot of people listening that can relate to different iterations of this story. And I have so many things to kind of like touch back on here. And I want to also ensure that we get into the human design like little element of this. But this is really important conversation because like I came from corporate too, and there is a mindset there. There is like a way of doing business there that doesn't align with a lot of people and does create a lot of like internal chaos. And so anybody, you know, listening or watching or whatever, if you're in that environment and it's not feeling right and you've got that voice inside of you, you know, just know that it might not be the best, most healthiest environment for you, and it's okay to exit. Like there are safer work environments, there are better corporate environments, healthier work environments, you know. And it's just been such a normal for so long for us to work in those kinds of environments, and for people to get away with treating staff like that or colleagues like that, you know, that the people tippy toe around those types of behaviors and accept it because the money's being brought in, or whatever, you know, the tenure and the seniority of certain people, you know what I mean? But honestly, that's not okay. And it is safe for somebody to like seek something else, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. And, you know, I wanted to touch on the suicidal ideation part of it as well for anybody listening or watching, because that's a really sensitive topic.
Hmm.
And it's not something that is discussed enough because there's a lot of shame around it. There's a lot of stigma around it still, you know. And I think I don't think it is, I know it is way more common than people realize. And so for anybody again listening or watching or whatnot, just like recognize that if you're having those thoughts, you know, like to get help, like to go get help, right? Talk to someone, like, you know, process through that shame piece if you can, to be able to get an alternative perspective if you're having a hard time listening to your own perspective. And Hannah, what I heard you say is that you had a real like a line, like a telephone line to your higher self, to your intuition, right? And it started with that's not me, that voice is not me, right? and
Hmm.
and there was something inside of you that allowed you to follow that train of thought, right? But not everybody can hear that, or not everybody believes that that voice is real, or whatnot, you know. And so it's a very sensitive um topic. And
Mhm.
I'm grateful that you brought it up. Do you have anything else that you want to like kind of say around that about like maybe like listening to the one voice over the other or reaching out for help or something? And then we'll move on from this.
Yeah, I think that's a really important question. And what I would say is that there was, I mean, I was not into a ton of personal development at that time. I was raised in a pretty conservative religious Christian household, but had deconstructed from that in my 20s, really, like between 20 and 30. I really deconstructed my religious upbringing a lot. So I didn't identify as, spiritual or religious at all at that point. So it didn't feel like a voice of God or anything like that. That's not what I identified with. But what it did feel like, and the best way I can describe it now, because I can still feel it, and not just hear it, but I can still feel it. The imprint of those, the weight of those words is that it's like they hit me like a ton of bricks, is like the best way to put it. Where like the suicidal thoughts were kind of like spirally, right? We think of, your neural pathways that you create. So you create that groove. If you have a similar pattern of like, oh yeah, I'm having the same thought. This is same thought is happening again. It feels um it feels ungrounded. It feels
Mm,
fearful. Or
right.
it did for me.
Mhm.
And instead the voice of my inner self or my higher self felt like again, just boom, grounded.
Mm,
It felt big, it felt powerful versus scared and flighty.
right.
And so
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the best way I can describe it. I think there are some human design elements that go along with that now that I know, right? Once I learned my human design, which has been a good like 4 years of really like studying at this point.
Mhm.
But I mean, so for me, there's also like this gut response that's
Mhm.
so important for me to listen to. And that like, this is not you, hit my gut response too of like, oh, yes, that feels true.
Yeah, I love that. And the other thing I want to like touch on here just briefly is how important this is for women
Mhm.
in terms of like, we're both women leaders, CEOs of our own company, we've both been in corporate, we've both been in high impact positions in companies. Our clientele are high impact individuals. My clients are high impact people, your clients are high impact people. And from a feminine perspective, like women being in the workplace, this what I was hearing really was that you were dealing with this man's unconscious ego,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he put you in that drama triangle, right? Like he was the perpetrator, and then you became the victim in that. And then that part of you had a part of you that was the savior, right? And
Mhm.
which was the voice, the higher voice, your higher self, you call it. I call it intuition. It's like it's that intuitive knowing, a knowing, whatever you want to call it. And then it turned you automatically into the opposite of the drama triangle, which is the empowerment dynamic. So you went from like that victim to the creator, right? You were like, what am I
Yeah.
creating here? From the perpetrator, you went to the challenger by going to your colleagues and being like, this is not right. And then you coached yourself out of that and coached like the whole entire situation. So I think that there's a lesson here for anybody listening to this, that like if you are stuck in some sort of like dynamic with someone who's in their ego and putting you themselves higher than you and manipulating a situation to make you feel bad, right? That's unhealthy. It's like a really unhealthy dynamic. And
Yeah.
you can look to your colleagues and look to other people to help you, like quote unquote save you in that. But that's not always going to be the case. And in the case of you, You listened to that voice, you followed that voice, you became your own savior, you became your own coach, your own creator, your own challenger, and then from there started listening to that voice, which then said, you don't know me, you don't know who I am. I love it.
Right? Yes. So
And
much attitude.
yeah, I love that. And then do it on your own, do it on your own. um I love all of that. And if we look at the consciousness scale too, not to bring in another modality,
Love it. Let's do it.
yeah, but like Hawkins, right? Like I've got it right in front of me here, right?
Hmm.
The at the bottom of the consciousness scale, we've got like shame, guilt, grief, all of those things, right? Which I'm sure, like it sounded like you were experiencing some of that stuff. And the tipping point in the consciousness scale is courage.
Yeah.
You were listening, you were hearing that, and you had the courage to go, nope, that's not me. You don't know who I am, and I'm gonna go and do it on my own, and that really like catapulted you into where you are today. So it's been 4 years,
Hmm.
and I'm curious how listening to yourself now is different from then, because that then they were like big booming voices that came in and kind of told you, but you were still in a resistance of it, took a little while, and then you finally listened, kind of thing. That's how this whole thing works.
Yep.
And going back to like the women in business thing, this is something that women have at a higher volume. It's not to say men don't have it. Men have it in a different kind of way. It's more instinct. It's a little bit different flavor for men, I find. Uh,
Hmm.
but women have this like in spades. And like we've got massive intuitive antennas, and they've been turned down, like, or turned off,
Yeah.
you know. Um,
Right.
yeah. And so like it's listen, listen, listen. And so I'm curious how that's different for you now. And then part B for that question is, then you mentioned how human design has played a part in this. So how did those two things like interplay?
Yeah. It's so funny. You're like pulling the story out like exactly perfectly. It's like
Yay.
because it did feel like again like a ton of bricks, or like getting beat over the head with it, like this is the thing, right? Like in order for me to really hear it and listen and feel it. And over the last 4 years, 5 years, really, but 4 years of being in business and really cultivating this relationship with myself, it is so much more subtle.
Mm,
I can hear it. Like that's the thing, is that it
yeah.
like my higher self, she doesn't have to boom to be heard, right? It can be something that is subtle, that is um it feels like a just quick, like, audio in my head sometimes, right? Like that's it'll I just hear it. It really feels like this still small voice. We hear that, and that truly is what it feels like, is a still small voice that speaks clearly. It speaks um usually in like short sentences. It's not usually this like lengthy anything. It's just like this short knowing. And that's usually how I know. Um, and
Yeah.
when it comes to human design, the other piece of that, this is actually a realization I've had pretty recently. And again, I've been studying my own design and practicing my own um my own authority, and my own, like, really living into my design for the last 4 years. And just recently, I realized that a lot of like, I will hear people's questions and I'll answer them. And what does that mean? In the human design system, it's basically our chakra system, right? It's very similar. You have a crown and a third eye, and mine are both undefined. And whenever we have an undefined place in our charts, we receive from other people very strongly in those areas wherever we're undefined. So
Yep.
with my crown being undefined, that is questions from all over the place. Right. And so I will be getting questions, um, and like feeling the need to, like, this pressure to answer them. And what I found was when I am in connection with someone else, if I'm in a connection with a client, um, let's say, and I'm doing their financial plan, I'll be writing their financial plan after our meetings together. We've done, several meetings together, going through the process that I take people through. And then I'm sitting down and I'm writing out all of the recommendations and I'm going through all of the information. I will be like, okay, here's the basic questions. Yeah, everyone has basic questions around financial planning. But then I will hear, like, okay, but how do I do that thing? Okay, but what about this thing? And I'll literally write it out. I'm like, okay, I don't know why, but I need to answer this and I need to write this out. Um, Clearest example was actually like a month ago. I was delivering a plan. This had happened. I'm delivering a plan. We're going through some of the recommendations, and she says, okay, but what about this thing? I'm like, hold on, we'll get there in just a second because I literally answered that question. Again later, okay, what about this next part? Like, hold on, because that's literally on the next page. I already answered that question. And that made me just like realize so strongly that I do that all the time. That's not a one-off thing. It wasn't like, oh, this is a crazy coincidence that my client, asked that. Go back and think like, no, that's how it always goes. When I'm in session with a client, and I'll have something come in, I went like this across my forehead because that's what it feels like. It feels like something just like coming in and across my forehead. And I'll say, what about this thing? And the client will be like, oh, I was just thinking about that because I have this question about a certain thing. And so what I've learned is if I trust that it's giving me information to help someone go deeper.
Mhm.
And that's what's happening. It doesn't mean if you are defined, if you know your human design and you're defined, you have a defined crown and third eye or ajna, that just means you have your own fixed process for the most part in those areas. And
Mhm.
you're the one that's like imprinting energy for others in those areas. We'll put it that way.
Mhm.
Um, but it's very, very fascinating to spend more time like listening to those voices and like actually trusting them. That's the thing is to like I've heard it, but now I trust it and I say it or just ask, is this coming up? Like this is coming up for me into my awareness. What does this mean? Is this connected in some way? And then let the other person elaborate.
Yeah, I love this. And there's a little like sidecar conversation here about like, I've heard people say, I don't trust my intuition. It always leads me like in the wrong place. And then I'm like, well, you're not
Mhm.
listening to your intuition then. You're listening to your fear, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And yeah. And so what I love about human design is like when I learned about my design and my open centers, I only have two. And my defined centers, I learned what was consistent and true inside of me on either case, right? So like I have open identity and I have open crown. So open identity is like I used to like be this chameleon and take on the identities of other people, like act like them and pick up their accents and dress like them or become them. And I got lost in that and I didn't realize what I was doing, right? And so there was like this loss of sense of self in that. And then when I recognized like, okay, well, this is when I learned about my human design, started to understand the difference between an open center and a defined center, and really started to lean into my defined centers and how they were consistent constantly all the time, all the time, all the time. Then the fluidity and the outsideness where it was coming in, and the difference in how it felt and seen. So I think like anything that's open, feel it's like ethereal, it's like gauzy. It's like once I'm no longer in the company of somebody who has like a very defined identity, whether they have defined identity or not, like somebody who's got a strong personality or strong accent or something like that that I've now taken on. As soon as I'm no longer in their presence, it's gone. Whereas
Mhm.
with my consistent defined centers, it's always there. It's always there. Like I have the freak to genius channel, which is the ajna to the throat. And so I'm always going to be a freak or a genius, depending
Right.
on what room I'm in. I have defined will. I imprint my will on people. And I didn't know that at first when I started coaching. And my willpower was what was getting my clients through. That defined will was propelling them through. And before I knew about this in human design, they would like kind of, you know, deflate almost. And then knowing your design as a coach is really important, actually. um
Yeah.
and then now I would be like, okay, I'm aware of this energy and that how powerful that is for people and how it pushes people, it propels people, and to warn them like that's mine, and let's find yours, let's find your your own will,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, and the crown thing too. I hear questions, I hear thoughts. It's like, yeah, I'm pretty much psychic. Like I can hear what somebody is saying or thinking or whatever. And then it's like, then I can say it before they say it or say it at the same time or something like that, and I do have people in my life who are defined on both, and it is very, very, very different. It's like, like there's this consistency in their thought process, and you got to be patient with them, especially if you're open. I find we need to be very patient with people who are is fully defined in that way, because it can take them a long time before they sort of like open their mind to a new way of thinking or a new question or something like that. That's been my experience, at
That
least.
is such a good, yes, I'm gonna hold on to that because it's such a good nuance.
Oh my gosh, especially
Yeah.
intimate partners.
Yes. Yeah. My husband and I both, I don't think he has a defined ajna. We both have an undefined crown. Yeah, he has a undefined ajna too, but when we're together, we
Huh.
connect.
Right.
So we create,
Yeah.
defined centers when we connect. But I also have a defined will center, and I have found that too.
Mhm.
And what I've learned is how to use that um, to help, to aid in the process. Because, for example, like if we're doing financial planning, I work with entrepreneurs
Yeah.
and business owners, and usually they're very busy and they don't want to do the things they don't want to do. So
Yeah.
they haven't been doing their financial planning stuff because they don't want to do it. Because
Yeah.
they don't, they've had someone before that, like, okay, well, just get me this list of 40 things, all of these accounts, all of these statements, all, and then we'll go from there and I'll do the work after you do this. They don't do it. They won't. 99% of my clients will not do anything like that because it's not in their wheelhouse and they don't have the willpower to do it on their own because it's something they don't want to do. So what I realized was, oh, if I want to work with these people, which I do, I love my visionary entrepreneurs. I have to lend them some of my willpower. How do I
Mhm.
do that? We do the process together. We literally sit together. I'm like, you don't have, I'm not going to give you homework. We're going to do this together. We're going to do the process of gathering your data, of talking about your spending, of talking about what matters to you. We're going to do it, you and me, or you, me, and your partner in this room together, Zoom room, usually. Um, and that is, again, I'm literally lending them my willpower that we're going to get it done. We're going to do this process together. And then when you're out of my energy, then it's fine, right? And you can let it go. There's not more to do because when they are out of my energy, then they don't want to do it.
And this
So,
would be especially true if you're a projector or a manifestor or a reflector and you've got no like do in you.
right, right. That energy to get the thing done. It's
Yeah.
like, no, we need to do it now. Like that's part of why I do things the way that I do things. Um, and for your undefined self center, I am quite defined. I have a lot of definition on my self center, on my G center. And that was a big piece of why corporate was so intolerable to me, was because I felt like I was constantly covering up parts of myself. I was constantly being a chameleon. I was constantly being one of the guys, and while I mean, I have three brothers, I have no sisters. I grew up as, with boys all over the place. And like, that's just who I am. Like, no, it's actually not. Like, I have very strong, like my inner balance of masculine, feminine, as like I have very strong, healthy masculine traits. But I also, because I bring in my strong, healthy feminine traits, that's what allows me to be so different in this field because
Mhm.
everyone else is all about the structure, the logic, the like do it the way I do it, just do what I tell you to do.
Mhm.
And that doesn't
No,
work.
don't
Right?
know what to do. Um,
Definitely not.
and I think that the open identity served me really well in corporate because I was able to chameleon myself, and it felt really fun and good. Like chameleonizing myself feels fun. It's like an actress or something like that, like it actually feels fun when it's being done healthily and consciously and all of that kind of stuff, like who am I gonna dress up like today? And I joke with, like, if I'm in a relationship or something like that, you're never gonna have the same woman twice. Like it's just like, get ready for some fun. That's concerned.
Yes. Well, and that's the healthy
Yeah,
expression of that. That's the deconditioned expression
exactly.
of
Yeah.
that, right? Is that you can utilize it and read other people's energy so
Yeah.
easily.
Exactly. But I did get lost in that. However, in corporate, what was stifling for me was my inability to be able to speak. So I had defined
Mm,
throat, right? And I have the channel, I call it the channel of enthusiasm, that
mhm.
like is connected to the 16 in my throat.
1648.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 1648. So I've got like that instinct, that splenic, like, bam, I'm excited about this thing. And there were very few things that I was excited about in corporate. I was like, man, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So becoming the entrepreneur and my own business owner, it's like, yeah, there's still a bunch of things I don't want to do, but I'm more excited. Like I get out of bed and I'm like, I can't wait. I can't wait to talk to my people. I can't wait to speak. I can't wait to say what I want to say, and I get to like be whatever identity I feel like being today, like I can go from working in a law firm and being more buttoned up, like no cleavagey kind of thing, to being here and being on Instagram and being like whatever, so I get to use my design in its entirety, plus being a generator, plus being emotional. And
Mhm.
so riding out my wave on top of all of that, like I think this is such a fascinating tool. And you and me, we're going to do another podcast episode where we're just going to talk about human design,
Yes,
and explain it a little more for people and play off each other in it. Because you're a manifesting generator, right?
I
You're a
am.
generator.
Sacral authority, manifesting generator.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm a pure generator, emotional authority. And so there's probably a lot of people who are like, I don't know what you're talking about right now. And that's fine.
Right.
That's fine. You can work with Hannah or I privately to learn
Right.
more
We can
design.
talk about it. Yes. It's
Yeah.
well, it's so powerful. And to like the prompt at the beginning, right? Of like, how do you use human design to create wealth in a way and consciously build your business? For me, it was, deconditioning, getting away from this corporate idea of how I should, quote unquote, should do financial planning, how I should get clients, how I should market myself, how the people that I should work with, all of those shoulds.
Yeah.
Anything that was a should was like, oh, that's not me.
Yeah.
Anything that felt, and again, knowing myself really well now, like seeing it, being a manifesting generator, a big piece of that is the enthusiasm. Right. I also have the 16. I don't have the full 1648. But so much of my energy is in what is like exciting you? Where is your hell yes energy?
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's a hell yes, then we're like, yes, let's try that. Because if it's a or a no, like I don't want to do that, but I'm supposed to, so I'm going to. That energy kills whatever I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Kills it.
It does. It kills creativity. And a lot of my clients actually, I work really, really well with manifesting generators because I've got actually the channel, the 950 something. It's the mountain and focus. It's like sacred,
Yep,
right?
9:59. Is that what that is?
Something. Yeah, I don't know.
52.
Anyway, yeah, 52 maybe, I don't know. Anyway, and so I'm able to like be really grounded and focused and hold court. I'm also triple split, so when I'm working with a manifesting generator with all the ideas and all the bing 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 bing, it's like, let's bring this in. I can see what it is that you're trying to do. Let's bring this into focus. Let's be still in this, and let's like now, like, and then the second thing is like, is this a hell yes, is this a hell no? So it's like all the projects, all the ideas, all the things, and manifesting generators that aren't aware of their design, that aren't aware of that, have that like energy. It's like ding, 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 and it's really overwhelming because now you layer on top of that people pleasing and the shoulds and all of the conditioning that we have from society, from trauma, from all of that stuff on top of it. It has nothing to even do with human design in a way, like it's a separate topic. um Now you've got all these ideas as a manifesting generator, for example, and then you're like, I should be doing this, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. And then the guilt and shame that comes with like, oh my God, I started this project and I'm not finishing it. And the guilt and shame of like, I need to, I have to, but my heart's not in it anymore. It's like such a relief for somebody to have like really like slow down enough to be like, okay, actually, of these 10 things, I only want to do two, or I only want to do
Mhm.
three. And sacral says yes. Emotional says yes, Um, and so knowing all of this is so important because in that wealth management, because whether you're an entrepreneur, it's going to help you know what clients and projects to say yes to.
Yeah.
That's so freaking crucial. So
Yes.
crucial, especially when we are dependent on making our own money and we got bills to pay. And it's like, well, I have to take this thing so that I can pay my bills, whatever, or wherever you are in that journey, right? Um, it's like how draining that can be when you're doing that against your own sort of like will or design or enthusiasm or whatever we want to call it. And then like pulling that in, and being just like in connection with what comes really natural for you to do for work as well, right? Like for projector, for example, like, are you working like a generator? Are you pushing yourself so hard out there that you're so freaking exhausted and nobody's listening to you, nobody's recognizing you, nobody's valuing anything that you're saying, and so now you're feeling all of this like resentment and this heaviness and you hate it all, right? Like you can't build wealth in that. Well, you can to a
Right.
degree.
You can, but and this is one of the other things that I talk about quite a bit is that if whatever you build in stress, in fear, in lack, any of that, whatever you build is going to have to be rebuilt. You will always be afraid of losing it. It will always feel wrong and gross, right? If you build it in that way, the energy of it will always be there.
Yeah.
And so when we can shift, and that can be hard to hear, especially for people who have like worked hard and accumulated, right? And maybe they've built this is why when people build these big businesses and have tons of revenue and have tons of money, they're still unhappy
Yeah.
because they didn't build it from a place of alignment and joy and love. They built it from a place of fear and scarcity and power and ego. And when it's built, they're like, this sucks.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good.
Yeah. And it's not a fantasy to build something that you love.
It's
It's not a
not. It is
fantasy. Yeah.
not.
It's not a fantasy. You can love
Yes.
your work and make a lot of money and do fun things in the world. Like you can, it's possible. We do
Yeah.
this. We know lots of people who do it. It's not a fantasy. And that ties it back to that corporate conversation at the very beginning that wants you to think that that's the only way that you can have success is in
Yeah.
that like scarcity, fear, like that was the environment that you were working in, was scarcity, fear, like do as I say
Competition.
or else, like, yeah, competition, because they did operate that way with you. Do as I say or else. And you were probably somebody a candidate that at the time they thought they could mess with, but they were wrong.
So
Wrong.
it's so interesting. It's so interesting, right? Yeah, to like know they knew they loved me as an associate and as an employee
Yeah.
because I was amazing. I'm really good at what I do. But I was also like, I would anticipate. I heard people when I realized the hearing people's questions thing, like, damn it, I've been doing that forever. I would hear their questions and preemptively answer things,
Yeah.
right? That was part of my magic even back then that I
Yeah.
didn't know that I was using. And it wasn't until I became, was asking the hard questions, wanting wanting to understand
Hmm.
their actual process. Like, tell me how this works because this doesn't make sense. How much you're paying me versus how much this book is worth doesn't make sense. Tell me why. They didn't want to answer those questions. They didn't, right? Like, I'm doing a lot of work here and I'm still getting paid the same as I was when I was just doing, this one job.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
why is that? Right. And when I was started asking questions, when I started being the squeaky wheel, when I started sticking up for myself, that's not what they were bargaining for.
No. And I love that because it was like you stepped into your power. Like that job just like gave you your power, and they
Hmm.
didn't know what hit them. Like that's what it sounds like to me. It's just like, oh, here's this like lovely woman, Hannah, she's so good. She anticipates our needs, she's going to be no trouble at all, you know? And then you're like, wait a minute, make this make sense. This doesn't make sense. And, et cetera, et cetera. And they were like, what? Okay, we got to silence her, and this is the thing. This is the thing. And I think that we're going to wrap up here, but I think that the one of the biggest takeaways in this conversation, there's a lot, and I'd love to hear your takeaway. um well, one, like obviously, like something like knowing yourself and using something like Gene Keys or human design or whatnot, a coach, a mentor, as a tool to help you distinguish the difference between what's conditioned and what's naturally you, right? And having that, and then like trusting yourself, and that especially for women listening or watching, like that voice, that thing inside of you, that intuition that's propelling you or saying something's not right or saying that we need to change or something, like listen and trusting it. That was the thing
Mhm.
that I learned the most in the last year. Like that tipped things really over the edge for me was trusting. I gaslit myself constantly with that.
Mhm.
And then like over the years, I trusted more, but I was still not trusting myself in certain areas. And so like it's the trusting of it, because it's like we hear it, we know it, we get it that something's not right, but we're pushing in a way, we don't listen to it. We don't want to deal with the what we need to do in order to change that thing or whatever. Um and then we've got that like storyline of, well, I don't trust it because last time I did that, the whole thing went to shit or whatever. And it's, you know what I mean? So I think those would be my big takeaways from today's conversation. I'd love to know what yours are.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. One just being that like we are all unique beings. Human design tells us that so clear. There are so many millions of configurations of how your chart can end up, right? So we are all very unique beings. And at the same time, we have some very universal experiences. So many of us have this experience of being essentially trampled on in
Mm,
corporate, having to fit ourselves into a box that we were never meant to be closed into. And whether that means you're in a box and you can't get out and be as big as you are, or you're cutting yourself off, cutting pieces of yourself off to be in the box, right? Whatever that feels like, you know what that feels like for you. to not be able to fully express yourself in some way, in a way, not just fully express yourself and say what you think or say what you feel, right? Be the expression of who you are.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Like being able to be the full expression of who you are is very different from just saying what's on your mind.
Yeah.
It's it's not the same. And it's what I have found over especially over the last 4 years of building X squared and expansive CEO, um, is that the more that I also step out and trust when I started talking about human design openly. It took me years,
Yeah.
actually. I was using it with clients. I was doing it with for myself and for my family. I was using it with clients, but I didn't have anything that said anything about my, quote unquote woo side. Um, because
Yeah.
I was afraid. I was
Yeah.
afraid that it would put me out in this like really weird way, that people would reject me, that people would think I was crazy. Um, that was the fear again. But the knowing, again, here's the fear versus the knowing. The knowing was that's where I'm going. The
Mhm.
knowing was this is so powerful. This is so helpful. And it's
Mhm.
so much fun. That's the other enjoy it so much.
Mhm.
Seeing someone have like this like reading their human design for them and giving them some of those things that are like seeing them cry in recognition of the, oh my God, that is me.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's one of the best feelings that I ever have.
Mhm.
And getting to incorporate that into my work fully to like use my voice, that has been another huge one. Like literally using my voice. I also have a defined throat, but that's like
Mhm.
getting to like actually say the things um out loud in public about what matters to me and how I do my own magic in the world, right? It's that has brought prosperity to my doorstep, right? It has been the gravitational pull for the clients that want to work with me and for the people that I want to collaborate with and people like you that I get to be on podcast with and be friends with and like we support each other in these ways and support each other energetically, right? Like none of that would have been possible if I didn't fully express who I am
Yeah.
and allow that to like bring the people to me that I'm meant to know and be with.
I so agree. I so agree. And I do remember your journey of starting to like, I'm gonna talk about this now. And we were all like, yeah.
Yeah, like duh, why aren't you
So
saying this
it was
already?
exactly, it was so obvious to all of us. We were just like, yeah. And that's the funny thing about it is like everybody else can see like what our brilliance is, and we just can't see it. And we're so like shamed by it or whatever, afraid to put it out there and stuff. And I know like I wouldn't be as confident and feeling like as like amazing as I do if I hadn't like seen myself and gone through these iterations with knowing my design and everything that you just talked about, like I'm just so full of joy now, and I'm so fearless in the most authentic way. Like it's not fake till you make it. It's not like I'm not like I don't hang up on here and then all of a sudden I'm deflated and some other person, like, you know it's this is amazing work, and I love it. Let's do another episode. We're just talking
Yes.
design and then sharing a screen and being like, this is what we meant by defined.
Oh my gosh. Yes, those are my favorite, truly. I really,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so fun.
Hannah, thank you. I so appreciate you being on here. How can people find you?
Easiest way to find me is at Hannah, HANNAHR Chapman.com. Literally just my name. So that's my personal website. It will take you everywhere else. It'll take you to the podcast. It'll take you to, which is the Expansive CEO podcast. It'll take you to the X Squared Wealth Planning website. It'll take you to Expansive CEO website, right? Like everything is right there on that central hub. Um, you can also connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all the places. I try to use my voice a lot and really again share things that I think are going to help more people. build wealth more consciously and in more alignment with their true selves. So yeah, I would love to any questions you have, right, about human design, send them over to Krisha and then we can source those questions and talk about it. That'd be super fun. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a great call to action.
There we go. Send us
Yeah.
your questions.
Send us your questions. We're generators. We love questions.
Yeah, give me something to respond to, and I'll light up.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Hannah. And thank you to you, dear listener and watcher of The Dirt and the Divine. Please like, subscribe, check out all the previous episodes that I've recorded as well. I've had some amazing guests on this show. And if you would like to inquire about working with me or learning more about my work in the world and how I can support you, go ahead and find me. You can just Google me, Krisha Young, KRISHAYOUNG, or go over to my website, krishayoung.com, and you can be directed from there as well. Thank you so much, Hannah. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.